I think that if we make who we become the goal rather than the thing that we achieve, instead of winning once a decade, we can win every day.
Alex Hormozi lays out one of the most brutally honest roadmaps to wealth I have ever heard, and it begins by dismantling the biggest lie in modern finance. His entire philosophy is built on a sequence of counterintuitive truths that you need to hear. First, we have to talk about the foundational mistake almost everyone makes: chasing passive income before they've even learned how to create active income.
I think they conflate sequence is probably the first and biggest thing, because a lot of people who are wanting to make money believe that the making money comes from investing, and investing is the last thing you do, not the first thing you do. And so one of the things is they'll look at people who are at the end of their careers and say, okay, well, these guys are making all these, these bets, right? If I just bought this meme coin, or I just bought Bitcoin in 2013, I'd be super rich. But it actually doesn't take into consideration what a decision-making process like that would create, which is if you took a swing at every type of Bitcoin, because you can't just say, I would only pick this one. You'd have to say, I'd pick every single super long shot. It's like we probably would have lost on 99 of the other bets. Mm-hmm. And so it's like we have to take it in aggregate. And so I would say making active income cool again, rather than the passive bet and really just gambling, is probably the first thing that people mess up, is that they somehow think that working or active income is not scalable, when in reality, the people who have the most money typically have tremendously high incomes. And it's because of the excess of cash flow from that income are they able now to make big swings with riskier bets that sometimes pay off and sometimes don't.
This right here is the fundamental reframe every single person needs. The internet has sold this dream of passive income, making it seem like the goal is to get money without working. What Hormozi is clarifying is that this is a dangerous illusion. True wealth, the kind that lets you make those big bets later, comes from a high active income first. It's the cash flow from your skills and your work that fuels everything else. What this really means is that you need to stop thinking like a gambler and start thinking like a builder. Your first goal isn't to get lucky on a long shot. It's to build a cash-generating machine by providing real value. This is a critical mindset shift from chasing shortcuts to embracing the process of earning. This immediately brings up the next question. If you're starting from zero with no product and no reputation, how do you begin generating that active income? Hormozi has a direct and challenging answer for that too.
How do you get over the block of, I don't want to work for free?
I actually think it's entitlement. I think it's believing that you deserve something for nothing. Like to flip the roles in reverse. Imagine somebody comes to you, they've never done anything ever in this particular space, and they say, hey, will you pay me to do this thing? Would you immediately, now maybe some people would be like, sure, then it's a charity thing, which is different. But would you be like, you know what, I really believe that this guy is the best person that I can get this problem solved from? Probably not. And so to carry some of that risk for yourself, you say, I'm going to front this. But if you want to not do it for free, thing number one is that you're getting educated. So like you're getting free education, which I see as absolutely valuable. The second thing is that you can make terms that don't necessarily mean that it's free. Like there's the price and then there's the terms. The terms of the agreement can be, if you do this with me, you have to give me feedback throughout the entire process. And at the end, if I do a good job, you leave a review, right? And on 3 different formats, and leave me a video and leave me a text version of it. That's now absolute, like I'll say it differently. A business owner, they do illegally, and so therefore they're very willing to pay people to leave them testimonials.
He calls the reluctance to work for free entitlement, and I think he's spot on. The core principle here is that when you have no track record, you have to trade your time not just for money, but for something far more valuable in the beginning: experience, proof, and credibility. The testimonials and case studies you get from doing free work are the assets that allow you to start charging later. This isn't about charity. It's a strategic investment in yourself. You are de-risking the decision for your first clients, and in return, you are earning an education on the front lines. You learn your own process, you build confidence, and you gather the social proof that becomes the foundation of your entire business. But this raises another critical question. What skills should you be offering in the first place? The common advice is to follow your passion, but Hormozi has a different and I think more pragmatic take.
And so the follow your passion issue is that, yeah, number one, the passions will change. Number two is that sometimes you're passionate about things that people don't value. And the thing is there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it will be very hard to make an income that way. The third thing is that I think that it creates an emotionality around business or income, which is that the moment it doesn't feel good, that you believe the myth that you should stop. When I think that
So good.
if you and I were to talk about the business side of anything, there are elements that I love and there are elements that I hate. And I see them as both required. I would love to maximize one versus the other, but it's just the cost of doing business, literally. But I try to reframe that pain that comes from doing the things that I don't want to do the things that I do want to do, as the price tag required to become the person that I want to become.
This is one of the most important myth busts for aspiring entrepreneurs. The idea that your work must always feel good is a trap. Business, like any serious pursuit, involves doing things you hate to achieve the outcomes you want. Tying your income stream to a passion makes you fragile, because the moment it becomes difficult or unenjoyable, you're tempted to quit. His reframe is powerful. See the difficult parts not as a sign you're on the wrong path, but as the price tag required to become the person you want to become. This separates your emotions from the necessary actions. I believe a better strategy is to focus on a problem you can solve, one that people will pay for, and pursue your passions in your free time. Even after you've made that choice, another form of paralysis often sets in: the search for the perfect idea. Hormozi explains why this is such a dangerous roadblock.
But I think the trade-off part is so important because, especially when you're starting out or even when you're more advanced in business, there's what I call the fallacy of the perfect pick, which is that we overanalyze things because we think that we have to get it just right. Because we think that if we pick just perfectly, we'll find a way to get only benefits and no costs. And it doesn't exist. And so instead, people just stay stuck thinking that there is some pick that they're not seeing, but it's just not true. And so I think the faster you're willing to make the trade-offs and actually spell them out, like, these are the things I'm willing to trade. Because I think a lot of people, when they want to pursue any endeavor, they immediately think, and I think this is a little bit more Western, is that they think about addition. They think about how many more things can I do? How many more things can I add to my calendar? But most, right now, you currently have a quote full calendar. You live 24 hours a day and you do stuff. And so I think it's more valuable to think, what am I willing to give up? What am I willing to sacrifice? And because we have to create space, we have to create this vacuum so that we can put this other thing in. And so those are the trades.
The fallacy of the perfect pick is a sophisticated form of procrastination, rooted in fear. We convince ourselves that we're being strategic by endlessly analyzing options, but what we're really doing is avoiding the risk and sacrifice that comes with any real decision. No path offers only upsides. I think the shift from a mindset of addition to one of subtraction is a sign of strategic maturity. Success isn't just about what you're willing to do, it's about what you're willing to give up. You have to create a vacuum in your life, sacrificing leisure, other projects, or comfort to make space for the new endeavor to grow. Making a choice and accepting the inherent trade-offs is what unlocks forward motion. Once you finally get moving, the next barrier is usually a massive underestimation of the sheer effort required. Hormozi's perspective on this is a necessary reality check.
I remember I had a conversation at the very beginning of me deciding to make content after I sold the company, where I said, hey, I really want to learn this Instagram game and content game. And so I talked to somebody who's a big influencer. And I said, can you analyze my stuff and tell me what I'm doing wrong? And he said, dude, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just doing too little. And so he said, pull up your Instagram. And I pulled it up and I think I was doing like a post every other day or something like that. And he's like, dude, I got 4 posts a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And then he said, pull up your LinkedIn. And I don't think I posted on LinkedIn. He's like, I got 10 posts a day. And he's like, pull up your Twitter at the time, now X. Is like, I had nothing, right? So he went side by side. He's like, I'm putting out 70, 80 a day and you're putting out one every other and you're complaining. And I was like, got it.
Yeah.
And so most people dramatically underestimate the amount of volume that is required. And that volume has a great feedback loop for skill, because you do these iterations and you will suck.
Yeah.
And that is okay.
This story is everything. Most people believe their problem is a lack of quality or a secret strategy they don't know. More often than not, the problem is a staggering lack of volume. We are simply not putting in enough repetitions to get the feedback we need to improve. Hormozi's realization that he was being outproduced by a factor of more than 100 to 1 is a lesson for all of us. Volume isn't just about brute force, it's about accelerating the learning process. Each post, each sales call, each attempt is an iteration. By dramatically increasing your volume, you dramatically increase the speed at which you learn what works. You have to be willing to suck at first, but the path from sucking to proficient is paved with a massive amount of output. Of course, putting yourself out there at that scale inevitably triggers our deepest fears, being judged, feeling like an imposter, and being seen as a failure. Here's Hormozi's tactical approach for reframing that fear.
So many people will use trauma or some event and they will create a narrative around why haven't I started? It's because my dad didn't hug me enough as a kid and I don't have this confidence. And so they just create this big story. And then they're like, I need to go see a therapist so that I can, untangle all of this. But if I were to say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to serve in pickleball, right? We wouldn't have the first session be, hey, do a serve. And then you would serve, not ideally if I'm a pickleball coach, right? And then I'd say, okay, so for the next, few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to try and go back in the past and we're going to try and figure out why your serve is so bad. And no, we're just going to say, change your wrist like this. This is how you do it. And so it's so much more productive to just focus on what do we need to do instead, rather than trying to figure out why you did it. Because the reality is you're never going to know. It's a convenient narrative and it might make sense, but at the same time, it could just be that you were rewarded for doing something like this in the past period. Now, there might have been conditions that created that reward and you can lament the person, but at the end of the day, the only thing you can do about it is change behavior.
This is a direct assault on analysis paralysis. The core principle is that obsessing over the why of our past failures is far less productive than focusing on the what of our next actions. While understanding our past is useful in therapy, in business, it can become an excuse for inaction. We build elaborate narratives to justify why we're stuck, when the solution is often much simpler. I think his tickleball analogy is brilliant. A coach doesn't psychoanalyze your bad serve. They give you a specific tactical instruction to correct it. We need to act as our own coach. Instead of asking, why am I afraid to sell? Ask, what specific action can I take right now to try and sell? This moves you from the realm of storytelling into the realm of behavior change, which is the only thing that produces a new result. All of these tactical and psychological shifts are held together by a single powerful North Star that drives Hormozi's entire philosophy. It's not about the money, it's about who you become.
I think that if we make who we become the goal rather than the thing that we achieve, instead of winning once a decade, we can win every day. Because you can continually get better at being who you are, and then the achievement is just one milestone along the path. But at least in my experiences, as I've actually approached milestones, when it becomes increasingly likely that I'm going to achieve it, it matters less and less. When I was in the lifting world, if I thought whatever my lift was and added 100 pounds, I would be like, oh my God, man, if I lifted that would be insane. But by the time you actually do lift that, you also lifted 5 pounds less than that before, and you lifted 10 pounds less than that before. So you're like, well, it's really not that big of a stretch anymore. And so it actually, in some ways, it's not even nearly as fulfilling as you think it is, because by the time it happens, you're so close to it, it seems obvious. And so shifting from who I become rather than what I achieve, or who I become as the achievement, has been a wonderful reframe for, like, sure, you want to be a millionaire, but what you really want to do is become the person who can become a millionaire. And that you can win every day.
This is the ultimate mindset for sustainable, long-term success. If your only goal is a distant number or a specific achievement, your journey will be filled with frustration, and the arrival at that goal is often anticlimactic. The prize is not the destination, it is the transformation you undergo during the climb. By making the goal to become the person capable of achieving those things, you give yourself the opportunity to win every single day. Did you learn a new skill? That's a win. Did you overcome a fear? That's a win. Did you stick to your commitment when you didn't feel like it? That's a win. This creates a powerful internal validation loop that is independent of external results, which is what gives you the resilience to endure the inevitable hardships. So the real question you should be asking yourself isn't just, what do I want to have? but who do I have to become? Alex Hormozi just gave us the playbook. What one action will you take after this to change your behavior, not just be entertained? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep analysis on building your wealth.